I'm Paula Francisco. I'm the Secretary of State for Climate Change and Sustainable Development Goals for Republic of Angola, and I'm very enthusiastic to be on the Voice of the Futures program.
Thank you, Minister, for joining us. It is an absolute honor, privilege. It is a unique moment to be able to talk to you. You come so highly recommended, and I know you have recently been part of COP28. And you're looking after our planet. You're looking after our future, and know what better voice to have than to have a voice into the future. So, firstly, welcome, Minister.
Thank you very much.
So before we go deep into the future and talk about all the wonderful things that you're doing, just for the audience, could you share with us a little bit about your early life, in the sense that who impacted you when you were a child? Did somebody, your parents, your teacher, or somebody who helped to shape you who you are today? Because you don't become a minister and you don't fall out of the sky and become a minister. Something has to happen to grow you into this particular position. So what was that?
Well, I'll say that it's my father's fault, actually. When we were born, we were not having a good period in the country. Those were the very old, long times of war in Angola. And I always say to him that we should help each other, because many people was dying, and it was a real struggle time. And then I say to him that I would like to become a doctor. And then he took me in front of TV. There was a program that was showing how doctors were taking people that were armed in the war to be saved. And then I say to him, then if I cannot become a doctor, then I should at least be a military, because then I can maybe just fight and try to save. And then he look at me and say, but how are you going to do that? I said, I don't know. You are the father, so you tell me. So I grew up with a very strong presence of my father, because of the background, also being a politician, a government person in those days. And then I was following him up. And I think also my personality helped a lot for me to keep on fighting, and then I end up being a ranger as part of my career, and I never left that one. Even today, I never stopped to be part of the team, to do patrolling, to control, and to put things in order. This is how I end up having this. And then, of course, societies are aligned with the political movements, and being a Pan-African girl, being in a movement for women, then this is how we started growing up. And of course, we had a school for political purposes. We also had those days, you should go to school and study the statutes and so on. And also there is a strong pillar in the family because of the church that you need to follow. We are Methodists, and my great parents from my mother's side, they were the founders of the Methodist in Angola. So then you can just see that I had no space to turn around otherwise. And then this is how I grew up, when the government was started looking at the young leaderships on the ground, who has a voice to do the work, the courage to do the work. And then I just understood later on that I was being guided, with a very soft way of doing things, actually using my personality. But then I end up becoming a field ranger, a project coordinator. Then I came to the government as a volunteer. I started then as a volunteer. Then I became a head of chief of staff. And then I became a national director. And then I became Secretary of State for biodiversity. And then I became minister. And then now I serve again after minister 2 terms as a Secretary of State again, because they say, no, maybe it's time for us to do something more strong. And then they say, we still need you in government, so let us be there. Because I must say that according to my age, my professional side moved too fast, okay? And when they look at me, yes, I'm still a baby, I was for more than, let's say, more or less 15 to 17 years, the youngest in the central government. So, and I could abuse them all because whenever I want to achieve something, I could say to them that I want this straight. And that if I was not following the hierarchy or the orders, I would have say, oh, just ignore. Is a baby coming to ask you? And they could give support. So this is how I used to build up and we could manage. And now we have this outcome to which I believe I can say as a good soldier of my government that I've served well up to today because we're still here and we are still advocating for the good of these communities and for the country.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I mean, what a journey and the rapid exponential growth that you have demonstrated. Minister, I have spoken to a lot of personalities in Africa, and it seems that women are playing a more and more significant role. They are the true power. I've worked in Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, and others in Tanzania, and I've been finding that women are playing a more and more significant role than ever before. Why is that, and how are the women getting to the top so quickly? People like yourself as role models, and what's the advice to young women who are growing up in Africa?
I would say this is because of our own background. We do believe we are a group of people, if I can say that, we believe we can help and we can do. I will not use the word do better, okay? In Africa, we have a contest that whenever there is a man, there is a nice woman behind. Sometimes the men, they fall on the war. So we need to step up and stood. There is a say from where I come from, my family come from, all of us in my land, where there is a Queen Zinga, where we say we were born with the power of Zinga. And Zinga was a fighter. And then this is maybe one of the stories that we also bring in Africa, where leadership, because to say that is a time change, because women has been always there caring. It's just that our voices are more heard now of today. We now have the space, and there was a courage to say that we are here. We have something to say because we do not agree with some of those things. And if you look at cultural type of development in Africa, matriarchal science plays a very strong role. And according to the world statistics, there is more women than men. So then some of us, they are also carrying the responsibility of being a great father to a child while the father has to provide from another services into the country. So this is how my own view brings up this strongness, and to say that there is also something biological that touches the heart of the others, which is how you approach, how you address. And this is also part of very silently is giving us space for us to have those big spaces. And now we have a balance somewhere that you can have, you never leave a man aside fully, but you discuss with them and then objectives are achievable.
Absolutely, and you, Minister, you are a warrior, and I can see that from the energy that you exude, and I see that you are now basically championing biodiversity, climate change, and you're representing your nation within that process. And I'll stay with the women, and I believe, and this is my personal belief system, please share what your views on that, is that women play a very significant role in actually developing, ensuring, nurturing our climate, our planet, in a way that we need to give them more respect, time, opportunity than ever before. What are your thoughts on women playing a role in climate change and biodiversity?
It's very important that we listen to women. for decision making. Because at the end of the day, I'll start with the biodiversity. Who cooks? Who goes and collects? Okay, this is very African way of thinking. But who cooks? I'm not talking about a very well-developed kitchen, but the charcoal we bring, we need to teach that not this tree, but we can have the other one. So it's through capacity building, through environmental education, through teaching, learning. And this is how we will find, because it's women as well that will take care of the child. And the child, through observation, we see what the mother is doing. And this is how women is being addressing the process in a cascade mode. I like to use for the future, because the future is silent, the word silence in between as well. So that we are teaching through love, through caring, but passing on the message. Skill of survival in a forest. And this will be maybe my example for biodiversity. And then when you look at climate change, okay, and then we will need to make aware and an alert that my cooking inside the house made the house so hot that now I'll start cooking outside because there is more wind. Okay. In a way, we are just taking the practices and we are bringing up to science to see quantities, how much that charcoal that I cook inside can be less or more than the one I'll be using outside of my house. And this is how we are getting the space, and how important is to empower and to make capacity building for women program, because they are also the ones who are providing the food. They go to produce the maize meal, the rice, okay? While the children in some communities in Africa, they're the ones who go take care of the goats and they go take care of the other animals. Small scale. Men are being used for, let's say, more hard physical work. But at the end of the day, he's also our child. It needs to be provided, to be fed, and this is how the role in between the two needs to be addressed. And of course, there are levels. There are levels where you have the connectivity, the nexus between them. Okay, sometimes you don't need really to divide, because they are interlinked into one same place where you live. So it's important that we address women on those programs. It's important that you address together youth with women in those programs. This is how I would see, and this is how I would face the future inclusiveness, so that we will have a proper outcome for those principles.
Indeed, it's a wonderful analysis that you did. When we talk about learning and education and schools, sometimes there are various theories and that say that by the age of about 9, 90% of the brain development of the child has already happened. So in those early days, they can learn new languages, they can learn new belief systems, they can understand what's going on. They can build empathy, they can build connection. And in this case, connection with the earth, connection with the soil, connection with the ecosystem that you're in. In Japan, for example, in every school, there is a patch where they have to grow rice. So they need to understand soil, they need to understand water, they need to understand seeds. They need to have patience to see it grow. You can do history and geography later on in life, but at this early stage in life, they're literally learning about life and about, what is really important in the future. So to me, those kinds of, and what you mentioned is also so important for the world to understand, is that we need to be looking after our planet and our soil and our land and our ecosystem literally as a kid, and that will help us in our future. What are your comments on that?
Well, my comment will be that we should upgrade the skills or the subject, the syllabus in the school. We a little bit grown up. We talk about geopolitical changes. But I would like to step really down and say that we are still having a new process of learning because of many geopolitical outcomes these days, where children need to start on an early base to understand what is biodiversity indeed, concerning, as you just mentioned, what is water, why water is important, why water is under the soil surface and is not the other way around. And for us, I would add, what is ocean? What is this being in front of the ocean and by not having water to drink when you are at the beach, for instance? Okay. Usually there is a lot of magazines that talk about bad things about Africa, how we suffer, and so on. So I'll bring here the light where we say, no, we also have beaches, nice fishes, and so on. So we still need to start learning from those. And my appeal maybe would be that a syllabus on a different levels need to start at early age. Today, not only from grade 12, we have a program here in government where people like me, like yourselves, we need to start writing down books. If you do a PowerPoint presentation, that should be transformed either in cartoons for children to learn or stories to go on TV, and then this is how you build up. So my appeal would be that we should look at, after all these big cops, because many are mainstreaming and cross-cutting, we need to translate that into a simple language so that we have and we prepare future. So that will be maybe my comment in general to that patient. And of course, the teaching skills, it goes along with technology. I cannot just force my own son to say, you need to read the book while I have an ebook those days. But still, it needs to understand that we are not all having capacity to have access to the ebook, and those we still need to learn from them. So we don't need to disconnect. When you talk about soil, you don't need to forget your belly, okay? You need to strengthen that and also to pass on the message.
Minister, do you think that we will see us managing all the climate issues that we have in our lifetime, say less than the next 25 to 30 years? How optimistic are you that we are on the right track?
Well, are we on the right track? This is what you are really asking me.
Absolutely. This is my
if I can just break down. I would say it will depend on what we want to achieve. I will not answer to you direct because it's a very tricky question, but I would say that what do we want to achieve? We are not getting there because we don't know what we want to achieve.
Yeah.
We are happy by the things we have, but we are eager to have more. Sure. It's different to what we want to achieve. Yeah. And besides, it comes very accountable for me to say 30 years to come, we might have all electricity that we aim to be more developed, okay? But yet we are not happy because there is something that nature provided for us, which is the ability of touching, of being together. We face issues of being in the same house and you send a message to say, hey, I'm in the room. No, come here, and we are already fighting with those principles. So I don't think that in 30 years to come, for a human perspective, we will lose a lot. For a technology perspective, for survival in a development world, they might achieve something, but there'll be sadness there. I don't know how much we can talk of that, not with patience, but with the sentiment, because I close my eyes and I see I'm dead. And then who's going to do the work if I don't teach it today? Indeed. If I don't get consensus, who am I going to do? What am I going to do? So there'll be something like 50-50, but I must say, usually I'm not pessimist, but we need to define first what we want to achieve, because there's still a lot of poverty,
Yeah.
there's still a lot of problem on waste. If
Yeah.
we really take waste into consideration as part of climate change, then why are we having those trillions and billions? You understand? We should break down the numbers and
Yeah.
start giving,
Yeah.
not as borrowing, as giving. And then we can talk about the 30 years to come. We don't have 30 years. We have now. And this future that we are having here and the voice of the future, they're
Yeah.
actually also the presence of the future of tomorrow. And this is maybe my comment. With sadness, I must say to you, indeed.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Minister, because the future is now. I mean, we can extrapolate into the future, but I think and I do a keynote speech, and hopefully one day I'll have the opportunity to come and do it in Angola, and I call it leading from the future and learning from the future, because I say that the future has already happened, it's just unevenly distributed. We need to find the will. We need to find the inner energy to basically bring that together and share it fairly. To me, when COVID happened, and again, I'm making a political statement to a politician, so please, I apologize. During COVID, science and technology won because we got the vaccine and we moved very, really rapidly. But politics, society, and the ethics of distribution and everything failed, because it didn't. I spoke to the head of Moderna, Stefan Bancel, who came up with the vaccine first, and he said we had it ready in 42 days, and everything else after that was blah blah. And people are positioning who's going to make the money, who's going to distribute, all nonsense. So what I think is that, and this is where I'd like to bring in terms of big government, big institution, big pharma, big anything, big industrial complexes, that there's so much hypercapitalism and there's so much money and greed and power concentrated there, that the world is in a very imbalanced state at this point in time, and it's hurting because of that. And climate is just one of the things that's suffering. So, for example, your iPhone or Samsung, it can last for 10 years. The hyper consumerism that we are pushing, by the second year, they are fiddling around with the software, with the upgrades. They're slowing your phone down and saying, "Oh, it's obsolete." It's not. But the problem is, in that process, you go and rape countries for metals and things of that nature that go into those things. So our hyperconsumerism, our hypercapitalism, institutions based around greed, and a lot of institutions like the World Health Organization, United Nations, IMF, World Bank, all of them were created 75 years ago for a problem 75 years ago to solve the problems.
Yes.
Fine. But today, if we can't control Facebook, and if we can't control cybersecurity, and if we can't control, people who are destroying the planet. By the way, oil companies knew about all of the things and the impact of climate change 40 years ago. There have been reports on that, and they just said, no, we're making too much money. We put it on the side. So my view is, and I'm being able to make this statement more openly than yourself, perhaps. My view is that until and unless all of the business around sustainability is more profitable than the dirty business, it will only be a nice to do. It's not something that people will just go out and say, let's go out there and build sustainable businesses and sustainable environments and green and everything and so on. So I'm a little bit skeptical that we need to find a mindset shift. We need to have a new thinking structure and style that's saying, I will only think through the lens of green first. Because 10 years ago, digital was a department. Today, we think through the lens of digital. So today, green as just a CSR function or a sustainability function. It should be an integral part of every decision and every conversation, almost automatically and intrinsically, like we do with the digital environment. So these are the mindset shifts, and I didn't attend all of the COP sessions, but I was just wondering whether if you attended something where you felt that people are thinking through the lens of green rather than, oh, I have to do a net zero, or I have to do my KPIs here, or you know what I'm saying. We need to have a fundamental mindset shift as opposed to just trying to do things on the edge. What are your thoughts in terms of some of my concerns as a normal person? You're an expert. I'm not. Just want to get your views on that.
For the future, we are all experts, and we are all none at the same time. Trust me. But I can say that I agree with you that an alert, a warning was always there. And 25 years ago was what made us, the world, come together and to say we need to have a United Nations. I think it's time to stop and review that some of the principles that we had in the past, population was much less, trouble was much less, even the climate periods maybe were different. We are coming from a change in the climate itself, where we have more humidity than droughts in the past. Now there's more rains, more storms, because of the waste we are accumulating in the air, where net zero is trying to achieve. Who is going to clean it? And yet we are talking about 30 years to come. We talk about acid rains as well. So let me put just a stop there and then bring up the issue that was raised in 19, if I'm not, let me not put years, then I will mistake, but there was already a resolution saying that we should declare climate as a humankind or heritage, how do you say, an heritage thing for us. And then yet there will be a mindset to change. There are people that they want to change. The COPs, this is what I would say, that if there was no willingness for a change, there would be no extra time of the COP, because we never agree, and then we start finding consensus, but then yet we do not agree again. That is not only because of regions, but it's because there is a group that think that we should be better. And then I would bring again the issue of the COVID. The COVID really gave us it helped us to say that I have enough, and was a test to say I can moderate on the use of things. Because you had a period to go and to get out, to go to the shop. You had a time to go and move. You could say it's better and it's safe for me to be inside. So the scaredness of COVID also made us to give more value on a traditional power of plants that are part of the medicine. So this connectivity, this is something that we should look and bring the mindset. I used to say that COVID lessons learned is part of the outcome of what we need to achieve. Because if you look at the declarations that they are also out from the Kunming Declaration, from the CBD, from the COP itself, it touches issues of targeting net zero especially, but Montreal Protocol is also changing its substances that we should not make the atmosphere more heavy on that. So we are having a concern, but then I did develop faster than the other one. So now I need to maintain my position because I will collapse. So this is, I will rephrase that, nature-based solutions. These are where we stand for discussions and bringing the humanity, being an heritage hotspot, climate itself, the air itself, then we, humankind, will better protect the environment.
100%, Minister. I'm in total agreement. And one further comment that I have on COVID is that if COVID didn't resolve our mindset shift, and perhaps there are times when I said as a rhetorical statement that perhaps COVID needed to last another couple of years, and rather than us being able to find the solution. In other words, it did not impact us sufficiently to fundamentally change the way we think and have a new set of rules. Because we are now back to the future. We are back to the same old nonsense. We learned a few new things, and we learned actually to go faster in some areas. Some societal changes like working from home and things like that. But fundamentally, we are actually moving faster now than we were pre-COVID. So we did not learn, and I think we saw those beautiful dolphins turning up in Venice. We saw the whales not talking to each other again, because all these shipping lanes, they actually take those lanes out. So because whales and sharks can communicate across hundreds of miles, and the whole sonic communication, all of that's disappearing. And so the ecosystems was completely brought back into balance just by less consumerism, less greed, less. And I'm sounding much as an activist, but you know what I'm saying. I think we can live with much less. I've started doing intermittent fasting, so 18 hours without food or one meal a day or something like that, and my body is completely adjusted. And so our human body does not need to eat 3-4 times a day. It's not designed for that, but we do, and then we have all sorts of issues around that. So I think the mindset shift, Minister, is really the key, the psychology, and this is where I get into ethics and trust. Just a quick comment on your views on trust, how we need to build trust and so on, and then we'll start concluding. So what is your view on trust in the world, how important it is, and how do we bring back psychological safety, trust, and humanity in our business life and our personal lives?
Well, that is a very important, and I think the key message that we should leave for the voices that needs to be heard still. Trust at all levels is indeed dropping down faster because of, first of all, is I need to understand why I will trust this person to what I want. There is a pressure, or there is a stone on top of the real activity that you need to develop, in my need on top of that. So you will give, but it's not because you trust, it's because you need. So the trust that we need to build is much stronger to what we will discuss at any topic here today. It's about what especially you believe it's correct to be done. It's just the same as having a friendship that lasts forever, and you know that even if I don't see Paula for 10 years, I still remember her, but when I call her, we'll be with the same, but it will depend on how society is built. It will depend on your education as well. It will depend on the business that you really want to commit yourself to achieve.
Yeah.
If you are, let's say, serious to achieve that goal and to give that. And for us to build this, we still need to go for another debate into the world. I don't know if it's 75 plus or will be 76 within a year on the next COP. But the truth is a tricky and is very strong world that we are building. It's not only about on the business, but it's about spirit on yourself. Because if you, as human beings, don't see part of the whole ecosystem, then you are falling apart already, because you are the ones who destroy. You gave an example of the whales and so on. I would say those on Earth, we here look more on the big five, for instance, on what we see on Earth, because we are used to the forest. By the sound, I know what is the danger. By the sound, I know what is the way. By the sound, I know where to go. But where there is no forest, is strange. So the strangeness will help to drop down. So this is why, and there's something that many of us sometimes don't understand, why there is always a need of capacity building. Is through learning, is a learning process. And trust is a learning process again. From what you did, what you are exposed today, and where you want to go. But I would like also, if you allow me another minute, to comment on the first transfrontier. They are still believers. They are still the eldership, if I can invent a word, as long as Shakespeare doesn't come back. But the elders, like what we do is, we need to learn each other. When we say the first frontier is Africa, is because even with all this responsibility that I have in my country, I'm not allowed by any way just to say to my mom, leave me alone. So those consciousness, that will build trust, because you know where your root is. And this is what will build trust, where your belly was dropped down. I'm not saying we cannot drop down in the hospital, but you know the boldness. And this is what is trust. Is a substantive for many things. But if you cannot sit down, and I know you're not going to use any other power or any other thing to beat me or to step me at the back, then we can move on. Because the capitalism, the increase of the development, I need to push the principles of the United Nations. We are all failing because we also say that we have a sovereign country. Sovereign country, I have my own policy and politics. Okay, it sometimes, if I'm not aligned, is it not trust, or am I not aligned? What is trust? So we still need to start learning to have to bring back trust from now on and to years to come. But we still need to rebuild society.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you for that, Minister.